I don't think anybody's at the gate saying, let's keep out all good songs. Nobody's there saying that. It has to be a song that gets their attention.
Hey everyone, this is Kevin Williams. Bill and Gloria Gaither have been writing and singing songs all over the world for decades. Bill has collected a few stories and philosophies throughout that time, and we'd like to share some of those with you. This week, he talks about one of the questions he gets asked most often from songwriters. What do I do with a song that I've written?
When anyone asks me that question, I have to think, well, what did you do, Bill, when you wrote your first one? I tried it out with my little group. My group at that point was my sister and my brother. Nobody knew who we were, okay? So we tried it out in our little local church. Some people liked it, so we tried out a few other places and started getting some interest. Now that seems simple, but it is still a pretty good principle. First of all, it's really tough in songwriting, and especially in spiritual songwriting, because I think anybody who writes a Christian song wants to feel it came from God. Now that doesn't mean that every song that you have written, or every song that I have written, as much as I feel as though it came from God, is for the whole world to hear. And that is still true for me even today, even in our platform. We try to get as many people to listen to it as possible. We've written 700 or 800 songs. We've been involved in that many. And our copyright people tell us that. But it would be hard for most of the people listening to us if they could list 5 to 10 to 20. I say that because it's true with Fanny Crosby, who wrote 6,000 songs. We'd be hard-pressed for most of the people to name 5 or more. Pass me now, O gentle Savior, This Is My Story, This Is My Song, Rescue the Perishing, and a couple, 3 others. Of course, people will say, well, you forgot this one. But you stretch that to 10 or 15, say even 20. Well, what happened to the other 5,500? So that means that not every song that has been written is for the whole world to hear. Are there some good Fanny Crosby songs that have probably been lost? Yes. I think there's some good Bill and Gloria songs that the world has not heard that I thought was pretty good, but for whatever reason, they didn't say. So back to the question, what do I do? I've written this song. I think you have to sing it or have somebody to sing it where you are. I think the chances of sending it to Bill Gaither or to any artist, across the country, and having them to just see it and say, this is a song, is pretty slim. You've got to get it heard somewhere by somebody. And I say that because we did. And we started getting affirmation from people saying, this is pretty good. Why don't you take it not only to your little church, your little town, but why don't you go out of the city limits? Or somebody would call me from Anderson and say, we heard you got a pretty good group and you're writing some of your songs. Now, they didn't say that, but it was part of what we did. So you got to start where you are, as simple as it sounds. And it may work and it may not. The biggest thing any songwriter wants to know is my song of any value? And I'd have to say, if God is telling you to write, you've got to write, whether anybody ever hears it or not. And there's a good example of that. Emily Dickinson had 4 or 5 poems published before she died. The rest were all discovered after she died. That's amazing to me. So don't tell me you have to have them published. You have to have them sung. You have to have them circulated, or otherwise you've been a failure. No. If God has told you to write a song, write the song. But don't lose your religion over it. I mean, that's not worth it. And I've had people just walk away from the faith simply saying, God told me to do this. And, I think you got to keep doing what you feel as though God wants you to do. But be very patient with the number of people who are, I don't think anybody's at the gate saying, let's keep out all good songs. Nobody's there saying that. It has to be a song that gets their attention. We were in Springfield, Missouri one night, and somebody gave me a CD by this young writer, Mark Mathis, who had written for the Nealons. He wasn't a novice at the whole thing. And so the next Monday morning I came in, and our product person said, Bill, here's some stuff that came in. So I looked at it, and if the title doesn't catch my attention and the lyric doesn't catch my attention, I probably won't spend much time listening to it. 30, 40 years ago, I'd look at everything. Now at 80, I cannot, simply because I have family, I have other responsibilities. I cannot spend all of my time going through everything. And maybe sometimes I'm missing a good song. I have missed them before. But this time I looked, sometimes it takes a mountain, sometimes a stormy sea, sometimes it takes a desert to get a hold of me. And I said, ooh, that's a pretty good lyric. And I called my assistant in. They said, hey, listen to this. You think this is a good idea? She said, you know what, that's a pretty good idea. And not a lot of people have said that. So the baby has to look a little different than 1,000 other babies that we have seen to even, to get the attention. So is it worth sending stuff? For the most part, probably that's going to be pretty tough, because all of us who are doing stuff and traveling are not going to listen to everything. But every now and then it happens. But I've got to go back again to my first thing. Sing it in your area. Sing it to somebody. If that song were sung and I was traveling through town as a traveling group and I heard a local group sing that, I'd say, where'd that song come from? That's exactly what happened to me. I was a local group singing with 2 or 3 other professional full-time people. I was teaching school. James Blackwood said, where are you getting those songs? I said, I wrote them. He said, those are pretty good songs. Somebody's going to hear it. If it should be one of those songs, I'm not going to say if it's a good song or a bad song, but one of those songs that maybe should be heard outside the city limits.
When we sat down to record this, there was a painting of Bill's dad on the wall just next to him. He couldn't help but tell us some of his favorite George Gaither stories. He calls them Georgisms.
Here's today's Georgism. One time we were at Family Fest, and there was a lady helping my dad, as we many times have volunteers. And so at the end of the night, Dad was putting coverings over the product so that they could leave and then come back the next day and sell, because they were going to be there for 3 or 4 days. And so as they were covering it up, it was about 11 o'clock at night, this lady asked my dad, George, why don't you and I go out and do the town? And Dean Hopper told me this because he heard it. Dad thought for a couple, 3 seconds, said, why don't we wait and do it in the morning, okay?
Well, there's more coming up, but I want to take a second to mention that this is sponsored by the Gaither Homecoming Tour. If you've ever been to a Gaither concert, you know it's a night full of laughter, inspiration, and amazing music. Check out Gaither.com to see when the tour will be in your area, and I promise you, it will be a night you won't forget.
We said, we need to go to Northwest Canada, but let's wait and do it in springtime. So we scheduled it May the 7th. I think we were in Winnipeg on one night, and we had to go to Regina the next night. In the meantime, a snowstorm like I have never, ever seen shut down the interstates. We had probably 7 or 8, maybe 9, 10 buses back during the homecoming days in the 90s. And we finally had to cancel the Regina and go on to, I forget, Saskatoon, one of the next towns. And so that night we were all at a truck stop, the 10 buses, totally snowed in, having snowball fights with the Isaacs signature sound, the vocal band, and the Martins. You name the groups. Russ Taff, Jesse Dixon was with us. We were having a ball. The date got canceled, and of course, tried to pay the bills with that many trucks. We had 3 or 4 trucks on the tour, and about 10 buses. Eating ham and eggs, talking to the truckers, talking to the local people. That's a wonderful, wonderful memory. But all the roads were shut down, and the people could not even get into the concert. That was a fun night. And we were there for about probably 18 hours, and it finally cleared up enough for us to get to the next date. If you've enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button to get the latest content and check out the other great clips on the Gaither Music TV channel.